Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I apologize for my hiatus for the past 8 days, but a lot of stuff has been going on in my personal life, and I won't get into that here, but I feel like I should have posted sooner. But we're back to it anyways, and today we're going to be talking about our new review series, the Chucky movies. As you know, these films, the first three are called the Child's Play movies, and then it becomes, of Chucky for the last four. But we start with the original, directed by Tom Holland in the year 1988. We have this is such an underrated film because to me, my favorites in this franchise are definitely 2, 3, and Bride of Chucky, but this film I can see where this kick-started the whole franchise. And let's just talk about it. So, I love the intro, where we see Charles Lee Ray being chased by Detective Mike Norris. And as you guys know, Charles Lee Ray is the human. He's Chucky when he was a human. Before, he gets chased into the toy store and finds after he's shot by Norris, he finds the Chucky doll, and he knows this voodoo spell to transfer his soul from his body to this doll. So you hear the Ade Dewey Dumbala, give me the power I beg of you. And you see the lightning to symbolize that Dumbala is there, strikes. And we zoom in on the doll. And, I know in the movie originally, it's supposed to be is Andy the killer or is Chucky the killer? But I feel like when we see this first part, we know that something's up and the doll's probably alive. But which we'll get to Brad Dourif's performance in a little bit, because, spoiler, he's the best part of these films, and these are great films. But there's some other great parts too. We meet Karen, played by Catherine, I forget her last name, and then we meet Alex Vincent's character, Andy Barclay, our main character for the first 3 films, and our kind of main side character, or second main character in Cult of Chucky, and kind of a side character, but also important in the TV series, which I'll review in a few weeks. But, it's his birthday, he just wants a good guy doll, and his mother can't get one because they're so expensive, but we find out from her friend, who's Chucky's, aunt, because her mom and her are close, that a scalper behind the alley where they work is selling the doll, a Chucky doll, or a good guy doll, and she pays $30 for it, takes it back home, and he's excited. And that night, we get our first, bit. We see our first thing Chucky might be alive, because he wanted to watch the news. We see the doll right when Maggie puts Andy in the doll and Chucky to bed. Chucky goes back out and sits on the couch. We don't see that, but we see him sitting on the chair watching the TV. So it's you could just assume Andy did that, it's the playing with Chucky. Then we see our first kill of the movie when Chucky hits Aunt Maggie with a hammer. And so they're going out the window on top of a car. One of the most iconic shots from this film. I believe the apartment building, this was all shot in Chicago, in the main city. It's not in the suburbs I think Child's Play 2 takes place in the suburbs, but I don't know if it was actually shot in the Chicago suburbs. But later on we'll get to see some shots of the south side and a lot more of the worst parts of the city. But Aunt Maggie dies, and then we can see Mike Norris become suspicious of Andy. Later on in the film, we see Chucky and Andy going out to where Eddie Caputo lives, because Eddie Caputo was Charles Lee Ray's getaway driver at the beginning of the film who drove off. So Chucky causes him to have a gas explosion, and Andy's brought in for questioning, and he keeps trying to say the doll is the one who's doing it. So he gets into a psychiatric hospital, and one of the more creepy shots is of Chucky looking back from the bed and looking at Andy after he escapes the room. But overall, let's get into when he first reveals himself. So Andy's mother, Karen, she starts to believe her son. She says, "Talk to me, damn it, or I'll throw you in the fire." And here's the first time we actually hear we hear Brad Dourif's voice, and it is one of the most. I remember hearing this I was about 5 when I first watched this. So when I heard Chucky say, "You stupid bit, you filthy slut, I'll teach you to me," I was like, he cussed, but yeah, it's a terrifying moment when you just finally hear Charles Lee Ray's voice coming out of the doll. He's taking control of the doll, and he's inside the doll. And Brad Dourif, just his first great bit of voice acting. But I think my favorite part of his voice acting in this film is definitely when he goes to visit John, the voodoo doctor. So the doctor who taught Chucky all that he knows about, voodoo and, these spells. Chucky's like, you got me. After Chucky tries to attack Norris and he gets sent flying from the car and then gets shot in the chest and has a cigarette lighter burn on his face. The car lighter burned his face. So you can see he's starting to get physical damage where he didn't know that could happen. So he's like, you got to get me out of this, doc. You got me into this mess. And the doctor tries to go, get someone to take Chucky out, but Chucky finds his voodoo doll and starts breaking the doctor's limbs. And then John finally reveals he has to transfer his soul into the first person that he told his real name to. And then he told Andy his real name, Charles Lee Ray. And then he kills the doctor. We see Karen and Mike go over there later to try to talk to him and find out what happened. He's like, you gotta shoot him in the heart. Now we get to our final part, whenever Chucky takes Andy back. When Andy goes back to the apartment, Chucky knocks him out and tries to do the chant again. Some other good kills in this film would be the doctor that tried to like put Andy to sleep, to give him anesthetics, to anesthesia to help him, do something to calm him down. Chucky shocks his head with one of those electroshock therapy things, but the chant fails. I mean, he's not able to do it in time before he gets knocked down by Karen, and then we get the house scene where he's stabbing through the door. That's one of the most disturbing scenes when you just see Karen head to the door trying to keep it shut. The knife comes through. Not to mention Chucky's knife is pretty cool in this film. It's a voodoo knife, I believe. It has different voodoo inscriptions on the hilt of the blade, and it's got the red painting for. I don't know if it's actually a real voodoo knife. If you know anything about that, you can let me know in the comments. But Chucky ends up getting killed. First, he's put in the fireplace by Andy, and he's like, Chucky's like, we're friends to the end, remember? And Andy burns him. Absolute savage moment. But he escapes. The fireplace now all crispy and stuff. He gets shot. The one cop friend of Mike comes over, and he doesn't believe him at first, but he starts getting strangled by Chucky's, headless body. And then we see Chucky he gets shot all his parts off, and then he finally gets shot in the heart, and he dies, just like John said. So we'll see in the next movie, they clean his body up, and he's, brought back, because he's rebuilt in Child's Play 2, but, overall, this film, the only downside I can say to the original Child's Play, is probably why it's not my favorite, is we don't get as much of Brad Dourif voicing Chucky, because it's more of a mystery for half the film. But when Chucky actually reveals himself, and we get the scenes of him trying to strangle Mike while Mike's, speeding the car downtown, and he crashes, and Chucky goes flying out. You get that special scene where he's running around saying, "That's not gonna work on me, Mikey." He finally gets shot. That's the movie picks up quality, and I love that last 40 minutes, 50 minutes of this film. And overall, it is an amazing horror film for 1988. Although we got a lot of great ones that year. Phantasm 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Friday the 13th Part 7, Hellraiser 2, Hellbound came out that year. Just a great catalog of horror films that year. So, but this film does stand the test of time. It still holds up great. It's not my favorite, but overall I would rate the original Child's Play from 1988 a 9.1 out of 10. So check it out again. I bought them all on DVD so I could watch these for the review series. I still need to watch Curse and Cult. I've watched 1 through 5. But yeah, I'm excited to do this franchise. It's a little different than our past franchises. Although I think Freddy and Chucky have always been my favorite horror slashers because they're both, wisecrackers and just wisecracking. They love this. They're some more sadist instead of, just being less quiet and emotionless, and it's fun to do a franchise again. Halloween was a good franchise to do. It's not my personal favorite. I love Michael Myers as a character, but there's something with that franchise I really don't like. Now, I don't think I dislike a single film in this franchise, Child's Play. I mean, Steve Chucky's a little goofy, but even then, I get some enjoyment out of it. But you hear my opinions on these as we get into them more, but, it's good to be back. I love you guys. Take care. Stay blessed. See you in the next one. Christ loves you. I love you. Take care.